As we start, I want to take you through a moment that I thought was going to be one of the most memorable, I thought was going to be one of the most rewarding, and thought was going to be one of the most satisfying feelings I would ever have in my coaching career, and ended up being the exact opposite of that and taking me in an entirely different direction, and really formed not only the coach that I am, but the husband, father, and really person that I am today. I went to a school that had really only known and only lived through futility for about 40 years. And I went there, and our charge was to win, and win at a high level. And we poured everything into winning. And we finally won our first conference championship in 37 years after having the program only won over 2 games 4 times in the previous 25 years. And that moment was all we had worked for. It's all we had grinded for. It's all we had thought about. And I'll never forget, I went back and we, with a great group of guys and coaches, we went back to the offices, and I went to our head coach and I said, "Wow, thanks for letting me be a part of this. We finally did it. What an awesome experience." And his response was, "Yeah, and now we get to move on, prepare for our next game, and then move on to recruiting." Wow, that was it? I got in my car, I started driving away, and I got 2 blocks from campus. I pulled over and I just started bawling. I just started weeping, like uncontrollably, by myself. I was all in my car all alone. And it was because there had to be more. There had to be more than just winning games. There had to be more than just setting a goal and overcoming obstacles to achieve that. There had to be more than just the outcome. And so I set out on my personal quest. And I had a number of different changes in my personal life. And we started looking at how can there be more as a coach? How can we not be a football coach? Here we did everything that I thought being a coach was. We were tough. When you think about the pictures of a football coach and the old-time college football coaches and what that is, that perception, the water's for wussies, rub some dirt on it, concussions, that back in my day, that was just a headache. And that, we had done all that, and we had won. We'd succeeded. But was that really all there was? And so I started digging into it more, and I wanted to hear from all the players that I would ever be around. And I wanted to, since that moment, I started bringing in 80 players per year. And I would go through the same set of questions. And I wanted to find out, how can you be an influential coach? How can I influence your lives on a bigger level than just wins and losses, than just, how good of a 3-point stance you get in, or how well you tackle or catch a football? How can it be more? How can there be more meaning? Because ultimately, I want to change the world. We want to change the world. And we want our players to leave and have a much better ability to change the world. One thing that we say is we want their lives to be enriched and more successful because they're part of our program. And how can we do that? So we started digging into it, and I'd ask the players a series of questions about their favorite coaches, their most influential coaches, the coaches that meant the most to them, what they think an influential coach would be. What does that look like? And as we dug into it, really it came out and we it had nothing to do with success. It was these top 3 words: caring, understanding, honest. That's all that they wanted. Players didn't need somebody who knew everything. Players didn't need to know somebody who was an expert at what they did. They just wanted somebody who cared about them. And ultimately, as an educator, as a teacher, as a boss, as a leader, they just wanted that. They just wanted somebody who, at the end, was always there for them, on and off the field. Those 3 words, caring, understanding, and honest showed up in 80% of the answers. 80% of the guys, those 3 words were the top 3 words that they wanted. They just want somebody who gets their background, who's going to be honest with them, and who's going to show them that they care about them and love them. And so, okay, now I know how we can dig into their lives. How can we change their life? How can we affect their behaviors? How can we affect their outcomes? So we got them to give us the answers. And now I said, all right, so now give me the answers to what do you think a great coach is? This is right from our guys. This is right from the last 4 or 5 years now of data on our players, on our guys. And I asked them, what do you think a great coach is? When you say that word, what is that? What does that look like to you? And no matter what order we'd say it in, no matter what order the questions would be, no matter how we would ask them to phrase that to us, they'd say the same words: caring, understanding, honest. But they also were knowledgeable. They were a grinder. They were driven. They were motivated. And ultimately, they were winners. And so we started digging into that and figuring out, okay, so this is how we changed their life. This is how we changed the world. This is what they think is a great coach. This is what the players think is a great coach. It had nothing to do, none of the words tough or yelling at me or holding me accountable. Those words didn't come up. It was the same word. It was lovey-feely words. Caring, honest, understanding. But at the end of it, they also knew what they were doing. Okay, so we examined how we can change their life, how we can be a great coach. So now we head to I go to the next stop, and we start to dive into that relationship, start to dive into that coach-player relationship. And one thing that we found out of a place that didn't have a lot of success, players hadn't won over 3 games in a year. We played 10. So they'd been 3-7 their entire career. And we asked them what they loved the most about the place they were at and their team. And it was always their teammates. And it shows you that the player-to-player, maybe peer-to-peer, maybe coworker-to-coworker, I don't know, maybe teammate-to-teammate is the best way to put it. That player-to-player relationship was unconditional. It was like a family. There were no conditions on the love that they would have for each other. No conditions on the relationship. No matter how bad things were, they loved each other, no matter what. However, the player-to-coach is very conditional. Very conditional. They can go somewhere else and play for somebody else. They didn't get to choose their teammates, but they got to choose their coach, and they still can choose their coach. And that relationship is very conditional. And so now let's start to figure out what are those conditions of the coach? What are those conditions of the player? How does that work between each other? That I'm going to get the most out of you. How can I change your life? How can we win? How can we pull this thing together as a team? What are the conditions? And it was really simple to find out. That player to the coach's conditions, it wasn't about expertise. Our data and our interviews and our focus groups wasn't about their expertise. It wasn't about their knowledge of running the 4-3 defense. It wasn't about how hard they coached individual technique. It was about love. It was about respect. It was about honesty. And communicating those 3 things is what it was about. I had a player who started on a championship team for us as a sophomore, and he got beat out, and he never started a game his last 2 years. Never started a game. I've had multiple players like that. One of them in particularly asked me to be the officiant in his wedding. Why? His reasoning was, Coach, you always said that you're going to praise effort, you're going to coach us as hard as we can, you're going to get the most out of us, but at the end, the objective when you're keeping score is to win the game. And you always communicated that to me. I always knew where I stood, and I always respected you for that. That's what it comes down to. Those are the conditions of the coach. It's not about how much you know. You know the old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's so true. That's why it's been around. We ask, out of our guys, we ask the conditions on the other side. It's not about, I don't think that it's about discipline, and I don't think it's about being on time, and I don't think it's about those old school things of toughness. I don't think that that's the case. I was at a place where that was it, and if you don't win, and those are your pillars, those are your cornerstones, and you don't win, and you're not treating people right, I mean, that's just recipe for chaos. But I think if you ask guys to enjoy it, if you ask them to have fun, if you ask them to make their greatest contribution, and to me, that's digging straight into their chest and grabbing onto their beating heart and feeling what's in there. What are you trying to get out of this experience? And how can you make your greatest contribution to us? And how can we all collectively make our greatest contribution to the group? And trying to get those things out of our guys while at the end enjoying the moment. And I think that part right there is always been the key for us, is to be focused on the moment. And you hear coaches talk about, it's really cliche about, we got this next game, we're not worrying about the game after this. And it's so true in order to have success. It's so true in order to treat your players the way that they want to be treated and the way that you need to treat them in order to get the most out of them. Because how can we combine all this? How can we combine being influential? How can we combine being a great coach, being that knowledgeable, and being a winner? How can we put all of that together to reach the pinnacle of success in our profession? And coaching, much like education, is a calling. It's not, you don't do it for money or the glamour or the grind. It's about the calling that you're in it for. And how can you combine all those things to achieve a level of greatness? How can we put all this together? And to us, it's setting a vision for them. It's having the hope of where they want to be, individually and as a team. And as long as we communicate that, that's huge for our vision. What does our vision look like? Where are we going? But after that, we want our vision to be set out in the distance. That's where we ultimately want to be at. But we can't just get there today or tomorrow or next month or even within the next few months. The place I'm at right now, can't go from 3-7 to 10-0 right now. But incrementally, if we all make our greatest contribution, we can. And that's our mindset, is the day-to-day grind, is believing in our process, is putting it into action, and setting it up for each individual to increase every day with the mindset that our process matches our vision. If we continue to follow our process, if we continue to put into action what we're trying to accomplish, we'll ultimately reach our vision with the people. That doesn't, again, never once have I said that our vision was to win a championship. That's not it. We want to find the pinnacle of success for our program. What does that mean? What does that look like? I don't know. It's going to be different for everybody. But we want to focus on a story that's one of my favorites. It shapes my life every day. There's a guy goes in the doctor. He's not feeling well. He's not doing well health-wise. Overweight, low energy. He's just not doing things he needs to do. And says, "Doc, I'm going to get back in shape. What should I do?" Doctor says, "Go home, eat an orange a day for 30 days. Come back and see me." Guy goes, "And?" "No, that's it. Go home, eat an orange a day. Come back in 30 days and see me." Okay. So he goes home, eats an orange a day, comes back. He's feeling great. Lost weight, looks better, a lot more energy. Things are going great for him. He says, "Doc, what was it about the oranges that really had me feeling good?" Doc says, "It's not about the orange. It has nothing to do with that. I'll give you one thing to focus on. Give you one thing to do for 30 days. And it started to have a bigger effect on the rest of your life. Had I told you to go home, lose 40 pounds, exercise 2 hours a day, sleep 8 hours a day, 8 hours a night, cut out, red meat or whatever, we wouldn't have been able to do that all at once. But we set one thing in front of you. And so maybe you ate that orange and the next morning, instead of having bacon and eggs, you had oatmeal. And maybe the next day you went for a longer walk. And the point is that you can't just say, Our vision is set out, and we just want to go win a championship. We want to change the world every day. Okay, how? How are we going to do that? And ultimately, when we focus on our orange, it all comes back to, in order to be a great coach, you always got to be an influential coach first. In order to be a great educator, I think you'll always have to be an influential educator first. And you can always control the end part of that.